What if I told you about an animal that hasn't eaten in more than 5 years? Not even a bite. It seems impossible, doesn't it? Introducing the massive isopod. Often referred to as the cockroaches of the deep sea, they are far larger and distinct. Today we'll explore the reasons for these animals' extreme resilience, how they may go years without eating, and what can truly kill them. Because of one thing. Spoiler alert. To be honest, it's not what you would anticipate. Now let's get started. What are giant isopods? First things first, what exactly are these things? They're bugs. Well, sort of. Genetically, pill bugs and giant isopods are almost identical. They share the same phylum, class, and order. They're both isopods, but giant isopods evolved while their tiny cousins stayed small and fragile. In roughly 2 months, a pill insect will dry out and perish if you stop feeding it. Before it's game over, most humans can only spend a few weeks without eating. And that makes sense logically. You require more fuel the larger you are. To thrive, a blue whale must consume millions of calories per day. Compared to a motorcycle, a lorry requires more petrol. So how are giant isopods breaking all the rules? How can something this big survive for years without eating? The deep sea starvation problem. Here's the thing. Giant isopods live in the absolute worst place to find food, the deep ocean. We're talking 2,000 meters below the surface. It's pitch black down there, cold, and food, it barely exists. Compare that to where pill bugs live. They've got food everywhere. Rotting leaves, dead insects, and fungi growing on trees. Food literally falls from the sky for them. Evolution didn't need pill bugs to survive starvation because there's always something to eat. But in the deep sea, food is insanely unpredictable. They may not get a single meal for months, maybe even years. Evolution forced giant isopods to develop the ability to go without food or they wouldn't exist at all. But saying they evolved to survive starvation doesn't actually explain how they do it. They're still burning energy just by existing, right? Even if you're lying in bed all day doing nothing, your body still needs calories. So what's their secret? Trick number 1. Extreme energy saving. Giant isopods have 2 main survival tricks. The first one is that they are ectotherms, which means their body temperature matches the water around them. And that water is barely above freezing, around 4 degrees Celsius. Humans waste tons of energy keeping our bodies at 37 degrees. Giant isopods waste 0 energy on heating themselves. Their metabolism is very slow, and their cells are doing the absolute bare minimum required to qualify as being alive. On top of that, they barely move. They just sit on the ocean floor in a state of permanent relaxation, just existing in the most energy-efficient way possible. But having a slow metabolism only gets you so far. You still need some energy to survive, and that's where their second trick comes in. Trick number 2, the gorge strategy. When food finally does appear in the deep sea, usually in the form of a dead whale carcass falling from above, giant isopods don't just eat until they're full, they eat until they literally can't move anymore. These things have been observed gorging themselves so hard that their rigid exoskeleton restricts them from moving. Their legs can't even lift their bellies off the seafloor. They turn themselves into mobile meat-filled rocks. All that food gets packed into massive fat reserves in their liver. Think of it like biological battery packs. These reserves are so energy-dense that they can slowly sip on them for years. And we know this works because we watched it happen in real time with the most famous giant isopod in history. Number 1. The legendary isopod. His name was Number 1, and yeah, that sounds like some epic nickname, but it wasn't. It was just his ID tag at the Toba Aquarium in Japan. He was the first giant isopod they ever got. In 2009, Number 1 decided to feast. He absolutely demolished a whole horse mackerel, packed his fat reserves to the absolute brim, and then he just stopped eating completely. For the next 5 years, the aquarium staff tried to feed him every single month. They'd wave fish in his face, drop the squid right next to him, basically begging him to eat. And every single time Number 1 would sniff it, maybe poke it with a leg, and then just walk away. He treated food like it didn't exist. He didn't eat a single bite for over 1,800 days. That's almost 5 years. And then in 2014, he died. When they did the autopsy, they found something crazy. He didn't die of starvation. He just died of old age. That one meal he ate in 2009 was still powering him till he died. He had enough energy left to keep going even longer. Whether it was stress from being in a tank, complications from old age, or just being stared at by thousands of tourists every day, something eventually killed him. But it wasn't starvation. And honestly, the fact that he was even alive in that tank is a miracle by itself. Surviving the pressure change. Here's the thing. Number 1 wasn't in the deep sea anymore. He was at the surface level. And for almost any other deep-sea creature, being dragged up from the abyss is a death sentence. Most deep-sea creatures don't have strong skeletons or connective tissue because the water pressure is literally holding them together. Remove that pressure and they collapse. So how can giant isopods survive being dragged up from 2,000 meters below without turning into goo? Because they're built differently, literally. First, they don't have swim bladders, those gas-filled sacks that fish use to float. Giant isopods walk on the ocean floor. They don't float. Second, their exoskeleton is an absolute engineering masterpiece. It's made of overlapping segmented plates that let them curl into a ball to protect their soft belly. This armor is designed to handle the weight of 2,500 meters of water pressing down on it. But because it's so rigid and doesn't rely on gas for support, it works perfectly fine at sea level too. It's basically wearing a suit of armor that functions just as well in space as it does in a submarine. They don't starve and they don't explode. So what can actually kill them?
What can kill them?
Turns out, giant isopods have one major weakness, and it's kind of embarrassing. After surviving crushing ocean depths and years of starvation, they're vulnerable to themselves. Giant isopods aren't the smartest creatures. Thinking burns too much energy. They're scavengers. When a large food source drops, they all swarm it. They pile on top of each other in a feeding frenzy. And because their vision is terrible, sometimes they mistake each other for food. They just bite whatever feels like meat. Luckily, their armor is so thick that these accidental bites usually just result in a very confused isopod, but sometimes a dead one. They do have real predators though. Sharks and octopuses are known for preying on isopods. But why get so big in the first place? Wouldn't being massive just attract more predators? Well, predators aren't actually that common in the deep sea. Yeah, sharks exist down there, but they're rare. The benefits of being giant outweighs the risks. When they are scavenging on a carcass, being big lets them hold a position and tear off bigger chunks. The biggest benefit? There's literally more space inside to stuff food into. Also, isopods need to actually reach the food. A dead whale falls 5 miles away. On tiny legs, that walk would take weeks. They'd burn more calories walking to the food than the food would give them and might die of exhaustion halfway there. But by being giant, they can cross the ocean floor with big strides, get to the food, gorge themselves, and then go back to bed rotting on the ocean floor. The molting nightmare. Being a giant does come with one big problem though, molting. Because we wear a suit of armor, they can't just grow. The armor doesn't stretch, so they have to shed it. But for giant isopods, molting is a nightmare. It takes tons of energy, and when their armor is off, they're soft and squishy. If a predator finds them during a molt, they're basically soft-shelled prey. So evolution came up with a genius solution. They don't molt all at once. They do it in halves. First, they shed the back half, wait for it to harden, and then shed the front half. This means they always have at least 50% of their armor protecting them. The one true weakness. Out of everything these creatures can survive it, there's one thing they absolutely cannot handle, and it destroys their entire survival strategy: warm water. These creatures can survive thousands of pounds of pressure. They can live in freezing 4-degree water. They can starve for years. They can even survive out of water for over an hour. but a slightly warm bath will kill them almost instantly. Sudden warmth causes immediate metabolic overload. Their oxygen demand spikes, their enzymes misfire, and they die. For all the insane things they can endure, this is their kryptonite. They're one of the most unique and adaptable creatures on Earth, but warm water? It means game over. So there you have it. Which fact about giant isopods shocked you the most? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive, hit that like button and subscribe for more videos about the weirdest creatures on Earth. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.